And it's a perfect song to lead into the closing of this series as we've been looking at a broad roadmap of our spiritual journey, one that is described in many different ways by many different teachers, whether it's Eckhart Tolle's work or Sri Aurobindo's work or the work of Don Beck and Claire Graves in their model of spiral dynamics, that there is a pattern of development of consciousness that is helpful for us to know about so that we can kind of see where we are individually and then where we are collectively in this pattern. And in Ken Wilber's model, to put it very simply, he says that the stages are the stages of waking up, of raising our consciousness, of realizing in the experience of waking up that we are more than these physical bodies, that there is an essence, a spiritual presence within us. We can call it by many different names. The names don't matter, but it's the realization that we are more than just this physical incarnation, and waking up to that realization and doing our best to keep that alive in us. And then the experience of growing up, of realizing that there are stages of psychological and spiritual maturity, that we can wake up, that we are spiritual beings having this human experience, but there is still the need for us to do some maturing psychologically and emotionally, and to own our stuff, to realize where there are places in us that we are showing up in an immature way, thinking just of ourselves and not of the larger dynamic. And then there is the experience of doing our cleaning up work, very much like the teacher Carl Jung referred to the shadow work, that all of us, individually and collectively, have a shadow, those parts of ourselves that we have put down, that we have not wanted to acknowledge within us. And until we're able to see them and bring them to the light, they will hold us in bondage. They will hold us hostage, and we will find that that shadow aspect of ourselves causes us to do things and act in ways that we really don't want to do and don't want to act. But when we can understand what they are, then we can begin to make better, more conscious choices, going back to the raising of consciousness. And then in Ken Wilber's model, he suggests the very important piece that it's not enough just to raise our consciousness and to wake up. It's not enough just to grow up in maturity or to clean up our stuff, that we need to show up. That showing up is about taking action. It's really what that song was all about, isn't it? Wasn't it? It's if not now, when? If not us, who? Showing up. And so showing up is a call to action. Once we've awakened, and it's when I say that, I need to put a disclaimer on. It's not like we awaken and then we're always awake. Have you noticed that you can awaken and then all of a sudden you've fallen back asleep? And you find yourself acting in ways that you don't want to act and thinking in ways you don't want to think. You've fallen back, what? Asleep, right? But given that to be the reality, once we have begun to awaken and to be awake a little more often than asleep, and once we have done some growing, some maturing, some cleaning up work, it's not enough to end there. It's not enough to end there. We need to embody those insights in a very active and authentic way, and in a way that contributes to the well-being of our human family. It is the second part of our mission statement. Unity is very much about helping us to learn the spiritual ideas and principles and to become skilled in the spiritual tools and practices to transform our individual lives, to heal, to grow, to prosper, to create better lives. Unity is very good at that. But unity also recognizes that that in and of itself is not enough. That we really are here Our divine appointment is to be a positive influence, to be a force for good in the world, to help heal the world wherever we are, however we are. And each one of us has a role to play. Each one of us has many things that we can do. They don't have to be the same things. They don't have to be as big as your neighbors or your coworkers. It's just, what is your work to do? Do that, as Mother Teresa would say, with a good heart, with lots of love, with great love, whatever that may be. Do it with lots of love, with an open heart, trusting and affirming that your neighbor will do the same, and supporting and encouraging one another to do the same. So it's about engaging authentically and bringing who and what we have to offer to make a difference in our communities, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our neighborhoods. Showing up is about putting your spiritual and psychological insights into action. It's very much what Unity's fifth principle is. Unity has 5 very simple principles, and the 5th of our principle has to do with this idea that it's not enough to know these things, that we have to live them on a daily basis. At Unity, as much as I love, and I hope you love, coming together in person or online and kind of reminding one another of our teachings and our practices and supporting one another in that, as much as we might love coming together for this experience, that it must go beyond the taking in of information and feeling good on a Sunday morning into activation in our world. That it's not enough just to know the principles. It's not enough just to have read a lot of great books and learned a lot of great stuff and be able to sit and meditate for hours on end if we don't actually apply it in very meaningful ways in showing up. I love the question, if there was enough evidence. If you were accused of being a Christian, is the way this usually goes. If you were accused of being a Christian, is there enough evidence in your life to convict you? And I think we ought to challenge whatever our path is, whether it's Christianity, whether our path is metaphysics like Unity, or our path is Buddhism, or our path is Islam. It doesn't matter what the path is. The Dalai Lama used to say, you don't need to change the path. Just do what that path is, the very best that you can do it, because the core of all of these teachings is essentially the same, So we could say, if you were accused of being a unitic, that's what Unity people are sometimes called, at least the young ones anyway. If you were accused of being a unitic, is there enough evidence to convict you of that? If you're accused of being a Buddhist, is there enough evidence to convict you of that in the way that you live your life? That's a really powerful question, isn't it? I think it's a really important question. Our religion, and I don't even like that word, but our religion or our faith can't just be a set of things that we believe. It's got to be a set of things that we do. The way that we act, the way that we treat one another, the way that we let our light shine, or as Rumi said, wherever you are, be the soul of that place. Take that in for a moment. It's a beautiful, aspirational invitation. Wherever you are, be the soul of that place. Nod your head if there are places in your life where it's really easy for you to feel like you can be the soul of that place, right? Now here's the kicker. Are there any places in your life where it's more challenging to be the soul of that place? Think about your ex. Your ex, an ex-lover, an ex-partner, your ex-boss. Think about the person that is of a very different political persuasion than you. How are you there? How do you show up there? That's the difference, right? That's the difference. That's what it means, I think what Rumi is trying to remind us of, wherever you are, be the soul of that place. Let there be enough evidence to convict you of the set of beliefs that you say you hold. We are to show up fully, embodying our values and insights in the world around us, bringing our spiritual practice into every interaction and every decision, to bring our values and our insights into every interaction and every decision. So practically speaking, what does that mean? It means things like bringing our spiritual practice into how we parent or grandparent. It means bringing our spiritual practice, our spiritual insights into our workplace. It does not mean trying to convert people, although I'd love you to tell them about us, but it doesn't mean trying to convert them. It just means, how do you bring your spiritual beliefs and practices and values into your workplace? How do you bring them into the way that you spend your money? How do you bring them into the way that you invest your money? In some of the work that our task force has been doing around the Good Futures Task Force and looking at the highest and best use of who we are and what we have as a spiritual community, one of the teachers that we have been working with writes about the idea of, do you know who your money is in bed with every night? That's the way he puts it. This is a pastor saying it. Do you know who your money is in bed with every night? Talking about and challenging the church, meaning the big, wide church, the big, wide religious organizations, and us individually. You know, do we know what our money is doing if we have money that's invested? These are the kinds of ways that we begin when we wake up more and more, and when we become more emotionally and psychologically mature, and when we work to clean up our shadow better and better, and when we're committed to showing up, we begin to look at all of these places in our lives, the very practical places of our lives, the day-to-day nitty-gritty of our lives. And we challenge ourselves, well, what does it look like to be spiritually mature, to have the things I believe in spiritually come into play with either how I use my money, or how I vote, or how I conduct myself at work, or how I treat my children, or how I treat my neighbors, or how I treat my ex-boss or my ex-partner or spouse. These become the ways that our teachings have real feet in the world, are really anchored in the world. Showing up is about fully participating in life, recognizing that the path to enlightenment, the path to spiritual growth, doesn't involve escaping from the world, but engaging with it consciously and compassionately. It's not about escaping the nitty-gritty of our lives. Yes, there may be times that we want to take a sabbatical. There may be times that we go on a retreat to kind of disengage from the dailiness of our lives, and that can be well and good. But the actual spiritual journey of maturity is not about completely disconnecting from life. It's about fully engaging with life. There's a very common kind of story in spiritual communities and teachings called the monk's return, to kind of describe the importance of what this concept is. The monk's return is about the idea that here is a person who has dedicated years of their life to prayer and to meditation, to mindfulness practice, to purifying their mind and heart as best as they possibly can, to really connect with the divine, to see that in one another. They meditate, they study, they're very devotional in it. And you can say that they really have not only awakened, but they've had the ability in this very monastic experience, in this ashram, to really be consistently awake. And then there comes a time where the teacher says to them, no, it's not time to stay here any longer or to meditate anymore or to take any more classes or do any more of these things. Now it's time to go back into your village. Now it's time to go back into your community. Now it's time to see if you can maintain that peace of mind, that patience, that understanding, that loving compassion with those that are very different than you, who think very differently than you do, who act very differently than you do. Can you do it when you're driving on the freeway? Can you do it when you're dealing with that difficult person? Now is your time to go back to the village and really see if what you learned in the monastery, what you learned in the ashram has taken hold in the very core of your being, because that's the real test. And that is what Wilber, I think, is trying to say to us in this emphasis on showing up. Yes, wake up, raise your consciousness as best you can, as often as you can, and forgive yourself when you fall back to sleep. Know that there are aspects of your life that still require you to grow in maturity, psychologically and emotionally. And there's probably still a heck of a lot of shadow work to do and to bring light to. But then go out and be fully engaged in the world that you find yourself in, with the people that you call your neighbors or your coworkers or your friends or your family. Get engaged there. Showing up, we would say, is, I guess, the final exam, right? It's how we demonstrate that there is, in fact, enough evidence to convict us of what we've been accused of being or what we want to identify with as being. Showing up is about being present to both our inner world and the outer world, recognizing that they are not separate, but part of a greater interconnected whole. To truly show up is to become an active participant in the evolution of consciousness. That's a big one. How many of you ever studied the work of the late futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard? Oh, I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Not that I'm going to assume you're going to do it, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. Look up the futurist Barbara Marx Hubbard and ask AI or Google or something to just give you kind of a little description of her work around this idea of conscious evolution individually and collectively. To truly show up is to become an active participant in the evolution of consciousness, your own and those of others, bringing your unique perspectives, talents, and love into the collective unfolding of humanity. This is in part, I think, where unity as one of the leading metaphysical movements in the world is really encouraging us to find that important intersection, and it's a personal one, that important personal intersection between our spiritual values, beliefs, and practices and what we see in the world that's not working. And whatever we see in the world that's not working, whether it's in the environment or whether it is in issues of poverty and hunger or war or devastation or what's going on in our own country, whatever it is that breaks your heart open. Do you have something that is breaking your heart open now? Yeah? I imagine there might be more than one. But something that's breaking your heart open, whatever that is, that's where you can step in and use your voice, use your energy, use what you believe to be true and important in a way to help push forward this idea of creating a more harmonious whole, to push forward the greater common good. This is an area of maturation that a lot of our metaphysical movements have been working hard recently to come into. Because it used to be that to be somebody in unity or to be somebody in religious science, science of mind, or divine science, that we were students of metaphysics so that we could get our own life together. And then we stopped. We got all fixed up, and then we were done. And what we've realized is there's the need for the evolution of our movements. To say, wait a minute, that, just like Wilber is saying, it is not enough to just end with getting yourself all fixed up. We have got to be engaged, spiritually engaged in the issues of the world. Nobody should tell you what those issues are for yourself. You need to figure that out. And your issues and where you stand on them may be very different than what I think the issues are or where I stand on them. But I have faith that if we are true to what we believe spiritually, that together we will get there regardless of our paths being very different. Can I have an amen to that? That's where I think we have to trust one another a little bit more, and where we have to have a little bit more courage and take a little stronger action, because the hurts are too great and the hurts are too many. We can't fall asleep to them. And is the work difficult? Probably. Can any one person solve it? Definitely not. But just as Mother Teresa said, we may not be able to do great things in the world, but we can do small things with great love, with great consciousness. And I'll end with Rumi's invitation. Wherever we are, paraphrase, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, let us be the soul of that place. Namaste.